You want to start a business to make a lot of money. Okay, great, you'll fail. Money is the byproduct. Legacy is the byproduct. You don't work on your byproduct.
Like every entrepreneurial expedition is something that you just have like a bit of hunch.
Things are a fit with your values.
Yeah.
Where it's easy for you to do well. You're well suited to it.
Community shapes the company, community shapes me, we shape the community. It all works together.
And this really speaks to how much community is in the forefront.
Organizations can be part of like opening up like real genuine connections versus like our social media.
It'll be about how people remember interactions.
What's your take on this?
I thought I had Andrea answer.
It's more difficult when you're really not sure how you're going to get there, or you have people around the table who aren't totally bought in.
And what I learned is not what more I do, it's what less that I do.
We need to care about each other, the planet, ways that society can shift to something sustainable.
Human beings, and really listening to each other and articulating well, you're going to get there.
Welcome. It's really a pleasure to have you all here. So people often ask us about the leader's mindset. What are you guys doing? What is this all up to? And the thing is, we are trying to figure things out as we go. But somehow, our community, our leaders like yourselves here are welcoming this thing that we're doing. But one thing I can tell you for sure is this is a purpose-driven initiative. And this is what I personally look forward to waking up to every morning. So the theme here, we just figured it out today. We're like, let's call it humanization. We're gonna humanize leadership. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our panelists here today, Jim, Julia, Andrea. Thanks for accepting this invitation. Thank you, really appreciate it. And to our 16-year-old young leader, who is going to be moderating tonight. You guys noticed that we're bridging leadership communication gap between Gen Zs and all the way to the boomers. Jim, are you a boomer yet? We love you, Jim. Okay, so the mission is to transfer leadership skills to the next generation of leaders so that they do better than us. We don't want our young leaders to look up to those loudest online, loudest on social media, loudest on news media, thinking that's what leadership looks like. No. We have so many incredible silent leaders who are doing amazing things for our communities, doing amazing things for the planet, for humanity in general. And we want to show our young leaders this is what true leadership looks like. Let's humanize our connections. Let's humanize leadership.
All right, so we're going to start with our panel tonight. And thank you all for being here, because without you, the stories, the collaboration we're about to share wouldn't be possible. So this isn't just another panel. Tonight is about humanizing leadership. You'll hear stories of struggle, stillness, collaboration, and purpose. I'm honored to guide us through this conversation with three remarkable leaders: Jim Estill, Julia Grady, and Andrea Benson. Now, Jim is the CEO of Danby Appliances, a serial entrepreneur who's built and invested in over 150 companies and is widely known for sponsoring and resettling refugee families across Canada. Julia is the executive director and co-founder of 10C Shared Space, Guelph's hub for changemakers, where she leads social innovation, community finance, and inclusive leadership. And Andrea is the country leader at PureSource Natural Products. She's led national brands to growth while building people-first teams and cultures grounded in purpose. So let's begin with our first theme, from self-made to community-made. So we often hear the term self-made leader, but no one gets here alone. Our communities shape our values, our mindset, even our view of success. So let's explore how these invisible forces helped form the leaders on this panel. So Jim, you've often used your success to create opportunities for others, like sponsoring refugee families. Looking back, what's a moment when your community really shaped your values and the way you lead?
Community does shape my values and the way I lead, but I also try to shape the community a little
I see.
to be Basically a better place if I can. So I try to do my little tiny part to help shape the community.
So, how do you see those same values influencing the way you lead businesses today?
Well, the Danby tagline is "Do the right thing," and that's I originally started because that's how staff can make a decision. Do you treat your coworker well? How do you treat your customers? What's your quality? All that kind of stuff. But that does translate to doing the right thing in the community as well. So community shapes the company. Community shapes me. We shape the community. It all works together.
And when's the first moment when you realized you had the opportunity to shape your own community?
Well, that actually happened after I sold my first business, really, because while you're growing your first business, you're trying hard to grow the business, and your community that you're mostly trying to look after is your staff at that point, and trying to have business success. When I sold that business, when I sell that business, all of a sudden I had time to sit back and realize that I could contribute.
Right.
I think it's really interesting. When I started my role at PureSource, which is part of Now Health Group, Now Health Group manufactures vitamins and supplements and various health and beauty products in the US and in Canada. And Jim and I know each other because Jim is also the chairman of the board at Now Health Group. And when I joined, and he and I first went out for lunch, before we sat down and broke bread together, Jim, knowing I was new to the Guelph area working and not living here, took me on a tour. And this really speaks to how much community is in the forefront of Jim's thinking, and connecting people and the networks, and the how much we all depend on one another for our success, especially in the times when things are hard. You did, right? You took me around and you said, okay, here's a business that does this, and here's, a business owned by a refugee family, and Andrea, here's places where your company might be able to put some charity dollars if you were looking for a spot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I took a lesson away from that, because I really walked into the job thinking, I need to figure out how this manufacturing operation works. I need to figure out where the growth opportunities are for Now vitamins and supplements. And I really did not have on my radar at all the fact that I don't have a network in the Guelph community, and that our employees live here.
Right.
That I need to understand the vibe and what they're dealing with, and it is all interconnected. So thank you for that, Jim.
Great.
So, we're going to rope Julia into the conversation. So, Julia, Tennessee has become a hub for collaboration. But before you were leading one, what's an experience that first showed the power of working together?
Let me talk about when I first moved to Guelph and started to really situate in a place that I kind of fall in love with. It was really the arts community, and seeing how artists come together is wonderful. Having Preetam sing, but seeing how artists can come together and make something magical with nearly no resources, but just their own kind of forces, and really open collaboration, because I think sometimes our monetary structures make collaboration challenging. So I'd say it was the arts community in Guelph that really showed me a path to more collaboration.
Right. And I'm personally interested in this question for you. So we talk about how every leader is so involved with collaboration. And the truth is, it can sometimes get messy. So, what have you learned about keeping people at the table when trust is on the line?
Yeah, that's a good question. I sometimes say get out fast when things are not working well, but really it's starting with your shared values, so, and your shared goals, right? So if we have shared objectives of advancing a project that supports these kinds of people or these kinds of things, then let's kind of keep that as central, and then really talk pretty openly about what, if it's organization to organization, what each organization actually needs to be like an active part in the collaboration, whether that's like a decision-making role or if it's like financial or some kind of other tool. It's really like talking about what's really needed and trying to keep that conversation really open and clear and more as a conversation first, and then documenting like all of those structures so that when things get challenging, you have something to go back to and refer to.
Right. I think that's wonderful advice. Jim, Andrea, I'm sure you faced this before as well. What's your advice in this situation?
Go ahead. Yeah, delegate.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I don't know. We've all been in rooms where things are not going well, right? And collaboration, I find it's always the easiest when there is lots to accomplish with ease. Everyone's happy to get on board with the thing they know is going to, win, or give them some credit, and get on the bus to be a part of that. And it's more difficult when you're really not sure how you're going to get there, or you have people around the table who aren't totally bought in. And I always come back to communication, 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 communication. So same as you, right? I mean, as long as people are seeing people across the table, human beings, and really listening to each other and articulating well, you're going to get there.
Mhm. Jim, what's your take on this?
I thought I had Andrea answer the question. So entrepreneurs tend to look to the positive and tend to be optimists.
Right.
And so when you ask a question like that, I'd look at it and say, okay, great. What are the interests of the various people and how can we make it so that it's collaborative, not how are things not collaborative? And earlier on, you mentioned the word trust. Trust increases collaboration. So work on things that increase trust. And the simplest thing simplest thing to do is to give more than you take and give without expectation of return. And there's no downside to that. Like it doesn't, it's there's really no downside to it. And so that's how I help.
And all of you have given so much to your community as well. So I think you all should be so proud of what you've achieved. And actually, Andrea, coming back to you, I have a question. So people describe you as a people first leader. What early influence, maybe from a family, mentor, or your workplace, shaped how you see the human side of leadership?
I would say, in terms of formative experiences for me, I grew up in a family that was quite religious. And so we went to church on Sundays and Thursdays and, days in between. And the big piece of that was community. There was a sense of community inside of the church community, but there was also a connection to the broader community outside. And it was watching folks in that environment look around at one another and see a need, whether it was individual to individual or in the community, and dream up ideas, and then go ahead and make them happen. Like Busy Fingers Knitting Club to make, some hats for newborns in the hospital, or delivering things to folks who were shut in. Like that really inspired me to own ideas and to take chances and to collaborate in bringing volunteers together to make things happen. And so that for me was very instrumental. But I know a lot of other people get that from other places. They get it from sports. They get it from clubs. They get it from family connections as well. So for me, I think I was just very fortunate in that way.
Right. And I want to circle back to something you said about your values. I think it would be really interesting for our audience to hear about what are your core values in terms of all of our panelists.
Radical transparency, it works for me sometimes. It can be a liability at other times, but I'm a big believer in communication, honesty, openness, integrity, and respect in communication for sure.
If hard work is a value, it's my number one. Show up every day, do the thing. Try, if you can't do the thing, let people know you can't do the thing. Try to either delegate or pull other people in to like help you move things forward.
I'd say, like everyone, I have multiple core values. So I'm a health person. I believe health allows me to do what I do. I think humility. I don't
Mm.
believe in not having that, and I think that a sense of humor, and that comes with humility because you're going to have some goose eggs and stuff like that. And even the Danby tagline, do the right thing. That's, I don't know whether that's a core value or not, but it's a way to live, right?
Mhm. And I think, as well, I think it would be really interesting to hear how your values influence the way you work today. So, how did you carry those core values into the work you're doing right now?
Everything starts with values. So, and if you do things which aren't in sync with your values, that's what causes stress. So, as I've gotten older, I realize I need to make sure that I do things that are congruent with my values. And that gives me power, and that gives me stress, and that gives me authenticity, and that gives me all of this. And the power is actually being me as opposed to being someone else. So I think life starts with values, and in the end, you can't really hide your values. They do come through. People see
It's
those
true.
values, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, like a COVID and all the different things that people go through. Um, so many people are living their work outside of their actual core values. So when you asked that question, it took me a second to like process, like, what would that be like to not be living within your values? So one of the things like about 10C, it's like such a gift to have like a project and an organization that really challenges you, but still is like super values aligned. And hoping that the work we're doing is also really values aligned for team members as well, so that you're all kind of like working kind of as yourselves and not pretending that you're interested in things.
And how do you make your team members carry on those same values as well?
I don't think we make them. I think we attract people with similar types of values. So if community connection and change and collaboration and caring about your fellow community members is a value, you would tend to come to like this kind of organization.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think hiring is big.
that's right. Put them through that in the hiring screen. You want to hire for values more than
Yeah.
specific skills.
Well, because when folks in your organization aren't aligned with the values of the organization or aren't a fit for the culture, they struggle to make decisions.
Have you ever faced where you've had a team member who's struggled to do that and you've had to show them the vision of the company?
Not, I can't think of an example where I had someone who was just a crazy outlier in terms of not, exhibiting solid values. But I think sometimes, you can have someone who isn't clear on the expectations of the organization. And in those cases, the best thing I've always found to do is just to have the conversation really fast, right? Like right away, get it out there, again, transparent, and give them the best chance they can have at adjusting to the expectations.
Right. And we've talked a lot about how our community and collaboration is very important. When's a moment for all of you where you realized you needed to rely on your community and you were in a really tough spot and you noticed that your community was there for you?
I find as a leader that happens all the time. This year has been a great year. I mean, we've had tariffs and all kinds of things going on that have been disruptive in the business, and I think it is really important to have a network of folks either doing similar roles or people who do things, leaders in businesses that can think totally outside of the box. So you can pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got a problem, and there's not an obvious answer, or I think I have the obvious answer, but can I just, toss this at you and get some other ideas, or can you connect me with somebody who has some expertise here? Because when you're sitting in the top seat, everyone's looking at you to try to, guide the ship and make the right decision. And a lot of the time, we also haven't done things before. We're trying it for the first time, and that's where having an ongoing connection with many people is really valuable.
I think for me, it happened when I was seeing my business not growing as fast as I wanted, and I realized I can't scale by doing it all myself.
Mhm.
Right.
So at that point, your community is more the people that you work with. But then became very good at not doing anything and having everyone else do everything. See, that's the secret to business success.
And how did you still maintain that where you started with your community and you've reached this level now where you've helped and build so many companies. So how do you still keep connected to your community?
Well, the challenge with connection is deep connections take a lot of time. Shallow
Mhm.
connections don't take much time. So
Mhm.
I have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, but I don't spend much time on those 30,000. Like I'd love to have lunch and dinner and go camping with everybody for a weekend, but you can't. Like there's only a limit to how often, how much time. So to some extent, you have to choose what you can. And I spent a lot of time trying to get to know myself. And so one thing I do is I track what gives me energy and what doesn't give me energy,
Mhm.
and who gives me energy and who doesn't give me energy. And I try to spend time with the people that do give me energy. I mean, sometimes you have to do things that don't give you energy, but spend your time where you get that energy.
Yeah. Julia, do you want to add on an experience here?
I'll do a personal one, and then I think that led me to some things at Tensi. It was around, well, in 2009, my partner died of cancer. And in the lead up to that, we were very quiet about it. We both ran a business together and didn't want to jeopardize that. And then in the phase where it was like clear they were fighting something bigger than us, we invited just really openly like a whole community of people in. And I credit like those, there was about 50 people like in our circle at that time. And I really, that gave me a vision of something I wish that everyone could have. We don't all need like 50 close friendships, but knowing that there's a circle of people around you that can and are sometimes willing to like jump into those moments, that can be a super powerful process. And I think that that experience like just gave me a sense of, well, this is what 10C could be part of. And more, if more organizations could be part of like opening up like real genuine connections versus like our social media connections, but creating ways for humans to just simply interact and get to know a little bit. I didn't know Jim was such a joker until tonight. So that this is kind of what life is about. And I think sometimes we miss that in the technology presence in our lives and in our children's lives. I think it's in-person human relationships super important.
And how did it feel for you the first time they all came together? Those
It
50
was
people?
always beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you actually bring up a really interesting point too about balancing the tech and human perspective. What do you think for at least my generation, how we're going to approach that now, and especially with AI?
Well, the AI is going to change the world.
It already
The
is.
key is we have to figure out how do we want it to change the world.
Mhm.
And so I'm not going to be a Luddite and say I'll never do it. It's just like
Yep.
internet changed the world. Okay,
Yep.
I'm not going to use the internet.
Mhm.
Cell phone changed the world. Not going to use cell phone. No, figure out how to use it, harness it for good. Um, and I actually believe as a young person, you will have a superpower if you aren't only AI, because
Mhm.
because other people like me will relate to a real person.
Right.
And so and just that interaction, I see it in my kids. I think if you're just on a screen and a iPad all the time, you're not part of the social
Mhm.
network where you
Yeah.
talk to real people, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and knowing how to put your device away for like short times or even extended periods of time,
Right.
it can be super powerful because then you can like relink to humans. I'm thinking about my daughter right now who just got back from like a 56-day canoe trip across from Yellowknife into Nunavut, and she was like an 18-year-old offline for like the entire summer, working with like a team of people to basically survive that kind of trip. And she recognized how better she felt in that team presence. And so carrying that kind of like finding those kinds of experiences, so that kids now will actually have to learn what those experiences are, because they won't be first nature to them. So that's what I would encourage, just like some time away so that you can also like regroup with humans and the work you can do together.
We could go down a big rabbit hole with AI, right? It's such a hot topic. I think the Gen Z folks who come into the organization for us are likely going to have expectations around software programs and capabilities that in any organization. I mean, everyone's at a different spot in terms of the investment they're able to make and the needs of their business, where we may get to a point, a lot of us, where we're not meeting that expectation when those folks enter into the workforce around the tools that we're able to give them when they're using those tools already in the outside world. And I hear you, like I have 3 teenage sons, so I hear you on the people connection piece and the skill building there. They're becoming master prompters, which is fabulous. But I look at it, and the studies are already coming out showing that it's critical thinking that goes by the wayside. Ethics are not built in there. Memory, so they could conduct the exercise and come to some kind of end point, but they don't remember it. So they're not necessarily learning when they're using the tools. I think it'll be really, really interesting. This is sort of like the season finale where we're waiting to see what's going to happen next with AI and that generation coming in. But I agree with Jim. I mean, there's just so much change.
And it's really important to try to balance the ethics of it as well. And especially when we get into privacy, and as you said, we could go down a rabbit hole with that. But I find it very interesting between the intersection of actually having collaboration in AI, and where you talk about prompting, how it's so essential that we learn how to actually communicate with AI properly so that we can get the results we want. And have any of you started incorporating AI into your business?
Of course,
For
we have.
sure.
Of course, we have. Of course, we haven't, and I'm actually trying to drive more AI. But the key is AI is a tool. So let's figure out, how does that tool add benefit to our business? And the reason I'm focusing on it a lot is in business, we're in a competitive business. If my competitors do it, we don't, we lose.
Right.
So we need to figure out, how can we incorporate it and use it to the best benefit.
And do it fast too.
And do it fast. And then as far as ethics go, it's just, again, it's like any tool. I can use my cell phone to do nefarious things. And, like you can use tools to break and enter, or you can use tools to build the table. Like the same tools, right?
Yeah, well, and I think any business that has software, which pretty much every business has some sort of software involved in their business, is going to end up with AI-enabled systems, because all of the software manufacturers are building it in now. So, we're going to get it. It's coming. Security is one of the big questions, because things are changing so fast. And for everyone who's building something good, there's somebody out there trying to figure out how to take advantage of it, how to crack that. And so that's going to be part of the pace of change too, as organizations slow down a little bit to make sure that the security is there.
And we're already kind of falling behind, because the changes, as you said, are happening so fast. So we are rushing to integrate AI into what we're doing, but we need to take the precautionary steps of making sure that it's safe, that it's ethical, that we're using it responsibly. And it's also really important for especially us, but also my generation, to be educated on AI as well, in terms of we understand the implications. And instead of using it for bad, we know how to use it for good, and we understand the nuances behind it. So I think this was a really good wrap up to our first segment. Now we're going to introduce what Mo has called the reverse Q&A. So instead of the panelists answering questions, The panelists will be asking the audience questions and you will be answering. And Mo will be coming around with a mic, but we're going to turn it to Jim for our first question on our segment from self-made to community-made. So Jim, what's your question for our audience today?
So the segment is self-made to community-made.
Yes.
And I find that media always wants to say that someone is self-made and puts the person up on the pedestal, but you can't have a reasonable business without it being the people in the community that make it. So my question is, why does the media do that?
It's an easier story to sell. I think you'll like the story a lot more, and it gets a lot more clicks than if you say, you know, he came from this community and this community raised him. Like it feels, and I don't think it is, but it feels almost more bland, is what I would say. Despite it not being more bland, it actually being more realistic. I think we love that hero complex, and I think as a society, we idolize a lot of people, whether it's athletes, superheroes, whatever. And I think there is something innately, I think, wrong with that, which I think almost Jim's sort of feeling as well, where it's like, why do we idolize these certain people and then put them up on a pedestal when they don't necessarily deserve that pedestal? So I get really sick of these kind of self-made billionaire stories where it's like there's not really any such thing as self-made billionaire. So yeah, I think I'm with you on this, Jim. And yeah, we idolize the hero complex. So I think that's why we have this as a culture.
It's a game, and it ends up taking you away from what you're supposed to do in your business, and it sucks you in. And for me, but it sells papers. So what I did, like now, I'm doing I just didn't read my website, and I'm telling my side of the story. So I posted the articles, but I tell the other side, which is the real side, because the side of the press is not me. And it's just the game. The paper and all that stuff is a game, and don't get sucked in by it. I did.
It's cold. It's damp. And he writes this poem, and I think it will resonate with all of us. At pensive eve, what time the sun peeped through the trees, his journey done, I love to walk the greenwood still, where gloom seems silence, till through the boughs I chanced to see the heavenly orb's bright revelry, and felt assured, however late, that time would be my advocate. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to start with our second segment, which is talking about how not all leadership is loud. And some of the strongest leaders are silent giants, working behind the scenes, showing up with consistency and care. So let's talk about the impact of invisible leadership. Julia, we're going to start with you. So much of your work has been about building platforms for others. How do you stay grounded in your mission, especially when the recognition doesn't always follow?
I don't necessarily need the recognition. I'm a super introvert. So I also, I think, classify as a shy introvert. So I would always prefer to be behind the scenes. So I think about like systems and frameworks and design and then listening. So I'm always kind of like listening with this like artist kind of introvert mentality. And that ended up becoming my like leadership style. And at some point, I was running a company with my two friends, and our accountant had said something like, "Well, Julia, you're the leader." I'm like, "No, I'm not," and I just laughed exactly like that. But then I started to like just listen to that a little bit more of like, what would it be like if I was the leader? So then it came to really trying to like create a way to help the team have the skills that they need to make decisions like in the context of the work at 10C. And that was, I think I'm pretty happy with that because I don't I was really nervous coming to this, but I don't really like that front person doing the thing. Although I love a good project, like I can bring forward a project, but then have ways to like bring people like along with the project, and then and teamwork and create things together. So that was like a long way to answer that question of I'm okay to be in the background, but if I need to be in the foreground, I will do it because it's like it is part of the role.
And Andrea, so you've led through some pretty big transitions and that aren't always visible from the outside. So, what's one thing those behind the scene moments taught you about the value of steady, quiet leadership?
Quiet. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer this question. I am a talker. But I will say that a lot of the time in, times of change or where you're trying to create some kind of transformation or transition, the key is getting folks to talk to one another,
Mm,
um, acting in a way that you are provoking people to ask questions, or you're asking questions that send them off on a path. And that can be very quiet. It can be by email and instant message and one-on-one conversations. And you're really relying, because you have to, on the collaboration of everybody else to make big things happen. We don't make big things happen. We help teams keep their eye on the ball,
right.
and try to take obstacles out of their way. So
Mhm. And has there been a moment for you when someone came back and told you how their leadership shaped them, even if you didn't realize it at the time?
yeah, sure. I think there have been times where I've had peers on leadership teams come in and say that leading from the side really influenced their ability to get things done. I think that can be difficult to do sometimes. Some leadership teams can be functional. They can
Right.
also be a little bit dysfunctional. And it really is difficult at times to put your own ego aside,
Mm.
see the power of your peers, see their strengths, and really try to lift them up and give them the spotlight in those moments. So I have I've benefited a couple of times from having somebody come back and pay the compliment, but really it's them who did all the work.
Right. And Jim, you've scaled big companies, but I imagine some of your most meaningful leadership decisions were small, private ones. Can you share an example of a quiet choice that ended up having a lasting impact?
Well, in order to scale businesses, I need to work through others.
Mhm.
And so for all of my businesses, I need to have other people do much of the out there leadership. And one of the big things I do is I call it servant leadership, which everyone knows what my job is to help them succeed, because if it's my company, it's does a lot better if I help them succeed. So that's my job. And like Julia, I'm actually an introvert, but because Danby Appliances is a consumer brand, I need to be the brand anyway. So I do end up coming out and being the brand. But I really like seeing others succeed. And it's self-interest too. I mean, if they succeed, I succeed.
Right. And how do you judge when it's more powerful to stay behind the scenes versus stepping out front?
My answer to that is it's always more powerful to stay behind the scenes for me. If I can get other people to do it, that's my technique. Like I said earlier, I don't do anything. Everyone else does everything, right? So that's and that is scalable, because the problem is you can't scale a business if you do it all yourself. And um, I have grown businesses. And I would study businesses that were doing more sales than I was. So when I was doing 50 million, I studied companies doing 100 million. I'm doing 500 million, I study companies doing a billion. And I study, and what I learned is not what more I do, it's what less that I do.
Yeah.
That's the only way to grow. I have to do less things to grow, because if I start doing more things, I'm not scalable. I don't have the time.
Mhm.
And And as I get old, time management is energy management also. So it's how do you spend your energy? It's not just the actual hours. I have very high work ethic,
Yeah.
but some periods I'm very high productivity. Other periods, it doesn't matter if it's just high work ethic. Don't get as much done.
And was it really hard the first time you had to give up some of the stuff that you were doing?
Oh, it's exceptionally hard. It's exceptionally hard because the reason we do things the way we do them is because we think that's the way to do them. And everyone else isn't going to do them identically the way we do them. So it is a skill though to sit back, let other people do it. And then I was lucky because I had in cases where people would actually do better than I did it. And then I started to say, oh, maybe I'm not doing it the best way. I'll get someone else to do it. And but I will say, as a entrepreneur owner, it is tough to not do it all. I mean, it's a skill. It's a needed characteristic to not micromanage. Micromanage, you're not going to get anything done.
Yeah. I could actually learn a thing or two from you. So, what advice would you have to the younger generation as well for what's the first step in terms of how to let go?
Oh, well, the first thing is to recognize the way you do it is not necessarily the right way to do it. And the best thing to do is, as far as delegation goes, is delegate someone who can do it easier, better, faster than you can. And usually there are people who can do it easier, better, or faster than you can. And often there's people that like doing it that I don't like doing it.
Yes.
So I don't particularly love doing accounting. And yet I can go down to my accounting department and ask someone to do a spreadsheet and spend all afternoon doing spreadsheet. And they think, I can't believe how lucky I am. Jim let me do these spreadsheets all afternoon. and I'm sitting here saying, oh my God, I'm glad I didn't have to do those spreadsheets all afternoon. Because that's not, and so the more I know myself, the more I know what my unique abilities are, the more time I spend in my unique strength, the more I get done, because I actually could have done those spreadsheets. I could have. I wouldn't enjoy it. I wouldn't do as good a job. And I wouldn't get done other things which I'm more uniquely capable of doing.
Right. Andrea, Julia, do you want to share an experience, or when do you know it's right to stay behind or step out at front?
I'm gonna agree with Jim on always. It's like as far as like staying on the side. I loved your like leading from the side, because it is like if we're going to have like strong organizations, we need to grow the people inside those. So then looking at like what kinds of tools they need to like grow into like what their kind of sweet spot is. So I always I liked when we were talking about hiring for values. I've always believed that like hiring for values first and skills like alongside is important, because if someone is working on the thing that they love the most, even if it doesn't seem necessarily fully related to your organization, there's usually like a theme there that can pull out them to be working like in their like pure kind of passion zone, and that's kind of what I look for in team members. And I think that leadership, if that's what we're going to call it, is like trying to situate people in their like ideal states working for your organization. I've never mastered though being able to do like so much less, but there's lots of like project work that I really wish I was involved in, but then I can see how the team is bringing things to life, and that's just amazing.
Okay.
Well, I think you can accidentally undermine people if as the talker in
That's
the group,
true.
you know. I think for me, the time I know it's time to get out in front is where there seems to be a lack of clarity around where we're going. So it's my job to make sure everyone's got their eye on that North Star.
Right.
But once there's a firm understanding of where we're headed, I'm not the one who is going to know how to do it, everything right down through the business. So getting out of the way of the leaders around the table is the way that we empower them to have folks follow them. I don't need people trying to, get my take on how we do it. I'm not an expert in all the functional areas inside of the business.
So we get the experts, learn how to let go, and don't undermine people. I think that's a really good time to wrap up and turn to our audience now for our reverse Q&A. So now we're actually going to get all three of the panelists to ask questions on silent giants. So, in your experience, let's start with Jim and move down this way. What would you ask?
Well, this is a little bit of a rhetorical question, but do you learn more when you talk or when you listen?
Nice.
Is that a question
That's
for
a
me,
good
Jim?
one.
No, I'm just asking. I'm asking the question because I asked that to myself, and it answers, "Gee, should I be talking here? Because if I learn something when I'm talking, then there's obviously a problem with me." So, is that a question for the audience? Do you learn more when you talk or when you listen?
I feel like we have a consensus.
Show of hands, right?
Consensus.
All right. Maybe then let's move on to Andrea. What's your question for the audience?
As someone who relies heavily on communication, I guess a question I have would be, when do you find that silent leadership as a choice can be a liability? Because certainly there would be circumstances under which it could be a liability. Does anyone have thoughts or examples of that?
Hi, I'm Teresa. So I think when you're making that choice, you're obviously assessing your risk analysis, and part of that will be tolerance to risk. So if I'm really good at risk tolerance and I can manage the emotions of that, then I might give a lot of rope to someone else to try something else that might fail, that might cost a bit of money. But on the business side of things, I have to be thinking about how much money and time can we spend or wash down the drain. But most of the time you don't wash it down the drain because that experiment will yield some sort of learning in it. So we're always, I think, in leadership or in running our business or scaling our business, assessing what is the value for the individual and what is the risk for the company. So if the value to the individual is going to outweigh the risk to the company, we should always be giving that opportunity to the individual to give something a shot and stay quiet in the process. Not necessarily, I think quiet and silent are different. So I don't think silent, but I do think quiet is a good route to take.
Thanks.
Shihab Kab. Actually, I observed it. I've seen it in a situation where there was a transformation happening in Ontario, and there were multiple organizations going through crisis. And I noticed one CEO in particular was always communicating with her team, which was very different than all the other ones. Same business, same area. And I remember talking to the staff, and they were telling me that she's given us all kind of information. And I was very surprised because there was no information. Like, nobody knew what's happening in the business. Everybody was surprised and waiting for what's happening. So I went to her and I'm like, Tracy, what are you doing? She said, I meet with them every week. And when I meet with them, I just tell them, here's what I know, or nothing has changed. And just that pattern of making sure that there's that transparency helped her make actually the best transformation that they've had compared to all the other businesses. So that was an example I've seen that not having it was a liability.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Evelyn Giannopoulos. I'm the Associate Director with the Upper Grand District School Board here in the region. I really appreciate what you've shared here today. And I think what's really resonating most with me when we think about our leaders is really that it isn't binary. I think the reality is that we need to have a deep understanding of the people that we work with and for, and to understand how we ebb and flow between leading in front, leading from behind, and leading from beside. So leading by the elbow. I think it's absolutely vital that leaders are there to set really clear, intentional direction and vision, but then at the same time have the ability to trust your people in its execution and implementation. I can absolutely speak from experience around leaders who have, in fact, empowered teams to lead and empowered me to lead, and then other examples where the micromanagement has in fact detracted the team from doing the work. So thank you so much. I think, it's multifaceted for sure. And I think that this is really reinforcing the need for us to be able to ebb and flow and understand the nuances and respond to our teams. So thank you.
I just decided to play a few minutes ago. revisit our youth a little bit, find that inner child where we used to dream, and some of us still do. Majority of people in this room have our basic needs met in our life, and we have this privilege of dreaming. Sleep just a little tonight. Dream just a little tonight. When the moon's smiling down, stars shine all around. Won't you dream just a little tonight?
We're going to get into our third and last section, which is collaboration is the currency of legacy. So, legacy isn't built in isolation. It's created by passing the mic, opening the door, and investing in others. So, let's talk about how collaboration becomes the currency that defines our long-term impact. And we're going to start with Andrea. So, Andrea, you often talk about leadership in terms of supporting people without burning out. Can you share a moment where collaboration helped someone else into their own success?
Oh gosh, I mean, there are just absolutely so many examples of this. I think anytime we're trying to do anything of significance inside of the organization, we have a number of corporate projects that we identify as corporate projects because they're cross-functional in nature and they take a lot of resources. And when you are going through a time of considerable change, or folks don't have a lot of extra bandwidth for these corporate projects, there is definitely the potential for folks across the leadership team to risk burnout, and they need one another. And sometimes it's just something as tiny as the person across that boardroom table nodding, I get it, I'm with you. You have my support. If you have questions, if you need an ear, I'm here for you. Something as small as that can get them through the week and over a hurdle. And then there are the big pieces where you're asking people to roll up their sleeves and provide resources from other departments, and nothing big inside of our company gets done without that kind of collaboration around the table, for sure.
And how does it feel knowing that part of the success of your team traces back to the way you choose to collaborate?
Well, it feels great, right? I mean, earlier in my career, I was very focused on individual accomplishments, like lots of people are. You're trying to get an idea or a dream, if you're an entrepreneur, off the ground and see it, be realized. Or if you grew up in corporate like I did, maybe you're trying to climb the ladder or prove yourself, right? And as time has passed, I've come to realize, I mean, you're mentioning legacy as part of the theme here, that time goes by and everything we build changes. And at the end, when I go off and retire, it'll be about how people remember interactions with me. And so that's where the collaboration has to come in. Even when I disagree, that disagreement has to feel collaborative and constructive.
Right. I think that's truly important. And Jim, you've mentored so many entrepreneurs. When you think about legacy, what excites you most about passing on not just knowledge, but confidence and belief?
Well, I don't believe my legacy is going to be me. It's going to be the other people that I hopefully have helped and have inspired. And it may not, they may not even know ultimately that it was me that started it. You just plant a bunch of seeds and hopefully that they grow and you create a better world and a better community. And so it's legacy has to be passed down, but I'm also okay with anonymous legacy. So I don't necessarily have to get the credit, so to speak. Especially, I mean, true legacy. I'm dead. Why do I care? Right? Actually, maybe I don't want a legacy. I don't want to die.
I think that's a very humble answer. And follow up to that in terms of talking about community and team. So we know confidence is harder to measure than skills. So, how do you know when you've truly helped someone believe in themselves and leave that lasting legacy?
Well, I mean, the obvious in business is success,
Mm.
and the actual success that they have. And it doesn't tend to be one thing.
Mm.
So maybe I helped a little bit on some confidence, but maybe it was someone else that helped, and it was a bunch of other things that helped. And
Mhm.
wouldn't you agree even on your project,
Totally.
Julia? Like
Yeah.
I didn't. I just did my little
Yeah.
piece to
Yeah.
not throw you out the door when you called. You see, you have no injuries. from
Sure.
that, right?
There were no injuries.
And what's an example when you really felt like I've helped this person? And how did that feel for you?
That's a really good question. The problem in business, I find I'm very good at business issues and creativity. I'm not as good at the relationship things, and people are always the messy part
Mm.
in that. So solving business issues tends to be, I'm going to say, the easier part. Um, but it's great to see it failed or didn't do as well ultimately. But it was great to see BlackBerry as an idea that then became a household name, household word. It wasn't my idea, but I helped contribute, and that little contribution moved society forward in a positive way and a negative way. So it goes both ways, but at least it was a little bit.
Yeah. And Julia. So, Tennessee itself feels like a living legacy. And how does creating that physical space where people come together and share power help shape the kind of impact you want to leave?
Yeah, for sure. So similar to Jim and Andrea, I don't really think of it as like a personal thing.
Mhm.
Like, hey, this is the thing I did. What I'd love to see though is that there's lots more nonprofits and community groups who can do projects in their communities and take more like let's not I think like take ownership and leadership in creating some things to happen for them, and then looking at like the practical ways they can work with like other organizations or individuals and bring them into their cause, and or work with a municipality or whatnot. So I think it's around like the collectivism, like just really like taking more collective action. I pretty firmly believe the future is going to be is community led.
Mhm.
And when we were thinking even about leadership, I'm very curious about how we can have more community leadership at the grassroots level.
Right. And if the next generation of leaders walked into Tennessee years from now, what kind of collaboration or culture do you hope they would still feel?
I hope they would still feel just really animated conversations between people and like the openness and willingness to try some things that they don't know are going to work. Like
Mhm.
every entrepreneurial expedition is something that you just have like a bit of hunch and you want to follow that path. And so finding ways that people can have their own hunches and build some things
Yeah.
would be what I'd love to see.
And Jim and Andrea, what do you hope the next generation of leaders will see in both your companies?
Andrea, once again.
You just one more time
Here's
to
the
think
bus.
about your answer. Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, I am not the first person to sit in this seat where Jim and Julia are building things from scratch. I inherited something that many people have played a leadership role in. So I will hope to just continue the great work that's been done. We sell wellness products.
Mhm.
I hope that we continue to service our consumer with products that help them and make those products not just for our brand, which is Now brand, but also for the many Canadian and some US brands that we represent in Canada. We have a lot of small manufactured goods that are flowing through us to get to retail. So I hope when I walk out of the seat, I leave the place with the help of all of the people who are rolling up their sleeves just a wee bit better.
Mhm.
I don't know what that will look like. We've got a lot of road, but that's about it.
Okay. Jim, what's your answer?
So all companies have momentum. My goal is to create momentum so things keep rolling somewhat. And I hope to have set an example on how any company can do good without necessarily having a good product. Now, Danby Appliances has good products, but inherently, you wouldn't say a wine cooler is better for society, but you can use what you, the money you make to positively impact things. So, but you can use your profits to start a furniture bank in
Yeah.
Guelph or
Right.
Yeah.
help other things in the community.
And to all of you, I know we've talked about how legacy is about collaboration in your community, but if you could personally leave a legacy, what would that thing be just for you?
See, the problem with asking that question of an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs feel they are their business. And so that is, and I've had other people that talk to me, oh, what about your brand versus Danby's brand? Well, I am Danby, so it is my brand. And what do you mean? It's the same, right? But so entrepreneurs don't feel it. I also have recognized that Danby is the platform that allows me to do what I do, and I think of it as a platform. So it is tied to the business. I guess it is. I did have another business previously, so I guess I could switch platforms myself. But
That's a tough question. I think not being an entrepreneur, it still feels similar to me. Whatever seat I'm in a leadership role, I'm all in, right? You're living and breathing the success of the business and the wellness of the people who work there. And so that's the focus. That's the whole of the focus.
Right. And Julie.
Okay, over to me. Back to the community leadership, like communities, futures being community led. Much more of like, let's say Canada's assets being in nonprofit management would be one of my long-term goals as 10C. So I see 10C helping other communities create similar types of hubs, but also helping other communities see how they can be working on more projects together so that the nonprofit sector can still be an even bigger part of Canada's economy.
And I have one final question for all of you. Now, this is kind of tough, but what advice would you have for my generation about leaving a lasting legacy?
so my suggestion is I wouldn't focus on leaving a legacy. I would focus on following your passion and building what you do. And it's kind of like people that say, I want to start a business to make a lot of money. Okay, great, you'll fail. That's not the thing. Money is the byproduct. Legacy is the byproduct. So you don't work on your byproduct. The byproduct just happens. Same thing with awards. You get an award. Well, you don't focus on trying to get the award. That's the wrong thing. That's the byproduct of doing what you do.
Any other advice?
I think do what you do, but also we need to care about each other, the planet, and ways that society can shift to something slightly sustainable. Like I really have a lot of I don't think I'm alone in having a lot of like fear for a future that has meant like so many problems. And I think really like being the solving side of the problems versus the contributing side of the problems, I think would be my advice.
Yes, and I think that ties into a lot of the themes from today, right? Finding a role where things are a fit with your values.
Yeah.
Where it's easy for you to do well because you're well suited to it. You don't necessarily have a clear view of what you're passionate about and how that translates into work when you're just entering the workforce. But if you're caring about people and you find an organization to align with, then you add the hard work and the people focus, and it's going to come together.
Yes, I think that's a really important message in terms of passion and empathy. I think empathy is something we should start putting more importance to and start reteaching, especially my generation, about not only having empathy for each other, but our environment as well. And I think I was told that my generation was supposed to fix the planet. We'll see how that goes. Maybe that'll be Gen Alpha.
All of
AI
our
will do
generations
it,
were
it's okay.
supposed to.
All right. So that wraps up segment 3, and we're now going to turn to our reverse Q&A.
My question is, do you in your organizations find it more difficult to get collaboration going off the block or to sustain it over time inside of initiatives? Which do you feel is the more difficult?
Hi, I'm Alan Pollan. I'm a tech founder, and I'll give you my perspective in various tech teams is uh, collaboration goes along with trust. And if you've built up trust, it's really easy. It's like easier to maintain collaboration. However, what do they say? Trust is earned in dollars and, earned in pennies and lost in dollars. So if you have broken that trust or there's a problem in the team, it can be really hard to get it back. And so one of the things I always suggest here is as leaders, our job is to be building up that trust and the collaboration will naturally follow.